All right, so thank you everyone for coming out today. My name is Anna and I will be leading you through our webinar today. I'm also joined by Kunal and he'll be joining in through the webinar later on to demonstrate a demo. So this is an introduction to our Journey to DevOps Engineer training program, where we will provide a bit of background into DevOps, the surge in demand for DevOps engineers within IT, as well as how you can get into this highly demanded field. So just to start off, if you guys just could put a 1 within the chat, just so that I know that I'm audible, or just let me know that I'm audible, that would be great. And so we'll just get started. So to start off with a bit of an introduction to our company, we are Be Cloud Ready, and we're a Toronto startup that was founded in 2015. And so we specialize in AI and cloud products. We also do consulting services, corporate training, and placement. So in a nutshell, one key area is that we work with people who are trying to break into the cloud and the DevOps field. So we help bring in people into the market who are pursuing a tech career by providing training programs as well as placements. And this is because we hire people and do contract work ourselves, so we're always looking for skilled people. And in doing so, we recognized a pattern in terms of people who have the skills and can get into the field, as well as those who may need a bit more experience and help transitioning into the field. So we help bridge that gap by providing training and then placement opportunities. So for a bit of background regarding who we've worked with some amazing corporate clients in the States, and these companies include big names like Collabra, Wells Fargo, Capital One, Bank of America, Allstate, and Ericsson. So these are all DevOps training clients, and so we can see that there is a lot of opportunity in this area. And lastly, just to wrap up the background into the company, I would like to introduce you all to Shandon Kumar. He is one of the founders of Be Cloud Ready, and he's a chief data architect and senior DevOps engineer and consultant. He has well over 15 years of experience within the industry and has worked at some of the biggest names in Ontario and has managed multi-millionaire projects and has a lot of industry level knowledge about DevOps. Essentially, he's the person who helps us guide people into getting into DevOps and knows the field inside and out. All right, so now to get into the agenda for today, this will be about a 30-minute webinar or so. And so throughout this webinar, we'll go over the current state of DevOps, why DevOps is so valuable to companies, and how you yourself can become a part of it. So within the webinar, please feel free to ask any questions in the chat and the Q&A section, as I'll get through the questions most likely near the end of the webinar. And I'm very happy to answer any questions that all of you may have. So let's start off by examining the current state of DevOps. So for everyone looking into getting into DevOps, a good starting point is to first see if there is a demand for it, which, as we'll see later, is an outstanding yes and a really huge rush towards it. So we'll start off with a pay scale and explain why there's the need for this role afterwards that does justify this. So as we can see with the pay scale for the US, the average DevOps engineer salary is about 95K or so. And in comparison, we also have Canada, which is a bit higher at about 125K or so. So we can see that this type of career can be very lucrative, but why exactly is this the case, and how can you yourself become a part of it? So this is what we'll be taking a look at today. So why DevOps? So to understand why DevOps is becoming so lucrative, let's start off by going over why there has been just a shift towards DevOps and what has been driving this demand and will continue to do so over the next few years. So the first thing to understand about DevOps and to understand why it's so important is to understand the software development lifecycle itself. So previously in the software development lifecycle, software was created in a very linear way where a client would go to a software developer firm and they would construct a plan from start to finish of what the software would look like. They would do analysis and figure out what they want to have in the software, build and deploy the software, and then test to make sure that the software is working. So to do this, they used a few different teams. So with the traditional team roles, as we can see here on the slide, you have a software development team, a quality assurance team, as well as an operations team. And these teams are separate and have very distinguished roles. So the software development team essentially give the code to the QA people who test it. And if there's some sort of bug, they give it back to the software development team. And then they work on it, and it goes so on and so forth until afterwards it moves on to the operations team in the end. However, this type of system does not really provide the flexibility we need when we have a tight deadline. And as time went on, they found even more drawbacks. These drawbacks were often that the business requirements would change during the development period of the software. So the company would get software that they had ordered and initially wanted, but it was no longer what they needed. So what they started to do was incorporate the client feedback in a more iterative way. So this old way from planning start to finish is called the waterfall way. And the new method that they transitioned into is an agile-based model. So this incorporates a feedback cycle. So instead of building an entire software for a client, you build a little piece for the client and show them to see that it is going in the right direction. And then if they don't like it, you can change it. And if they do like it, you can just keep on building on top of it. So that when it does get to the very end of the software development process, people have a software that they like and that they do need. So going to this diagram, we can again just see that we have the software development team, people creating the software, the quality assurance people testing the software and making sure it's working. And then after the software is working, it would get passed off to the operations people to monitor the environment. So we can see that with this traditional team role framework, these teams work very separately and it's not very ideal. So to resolve this, instead, we find that we really need to collaborate. And this is exactly what the DevOps philosophy is about. So with the Agile method, and this is with the iterative process that we mentioned, all of these three teams need to collaborate and communicate with one another in a very, very tight-knit way. And to do this, we need someone with a skill set that's very unique to the market, and that skill set is DevOps. So DevOps is a completely brand new skill set that's needed. Traditional people don't have the skill set, and that's why every company in technology need at least a few DevOps people in their team. So the new position that we have seen that has been opened up is the DevOps position, and there has been a tremendous demand for it. And also with this new DevOps role, we can see that it also does require people or someone to wear a few hats. And by also having someone with a more diverse skill set, this also means that some jobs are becoming redundant. And it's because now they have one person with all of the relevant skills they need. So to even further see the impact that DevOps has for companies, in looking at the state of DevOps, we can see that traditional ops are 41% more time consuming overall. Traditional ops spends 21% more time putting out fires. Meanwhile, when you transition to DevOps, DevOps spends 33% more time on infrastructure improvements. DevOps spends 60% less time handling support cases. 63% experience improvement in the quality of their software deployments. 63% release new software more frequently. 55% notice improved cooperation and collaboration. And lastly, 38% report a higher quality of code production. So we can see how this would be a huge, huge benefit to companies. And in saying so, in talking about the state of DevOps and this transition, you might be wondering what types of projects would someone in a DevOps role be involved in? So within this career, some of the types of projects that you might be involved in, they include cloud migration, disaster recovery, cloud infrastructure optimization, application orchestration, and continuous integration and deployment pipelines. So just to provide a little bit of background into each of these types of projects, we'll start off with cloud migration. So cloud migration is essentially just the process of moving digital assets like data, workloads, applications, and some other IT resources that are on premises to cloud infrastructure. And this is because you might have servers at your company that are expensive to maintain and need people hired to handle these servers, maintain them, and debug them. But if you move your service into a cloud service platform like AWS or Amazon Web Service, a lot of the work is done for you. Next up, we have disaster recovery. So when you're working on a disaster recovery project, essentially this is just the idea that if you have software running, you want to make sure that if something happens to your servers, you can boot them up really quickly. And so automating these processes is what disaster recovery is involved in. Next up is cloud infrastructure optimization. So people have a lot of resources in the cloud, and that can become very costly, especially if it's not well optimized. But if it is optimized, that can save companies a huge amount of money. So these types of projects help to optimize the cloud infrastructure. Next up is application orchestration. So this is also known as container orchestration, which we'll get into a little bit later. It's essentially just a process that automates deployment, management, and scaling of container-based applications. And then lastly, we have continuous integration / deployment pipelines. So as we saw in creating software, the development lifecycle has many steps that can be repetitive, and continuous integration and deployment is automation of some of these steps. So some of these steps can be automated, which again further just saves time and cost of labor, which of course is a benefit to companies. And so the goal of a continuous integration is to establish a consistent and automated way to build, package, and test applications, while with continuous deployment or continuous delivery, this just automates the delivery of the applications to a specific infrastructure environment. So as we can see with the various different types of projects, DevOps is also very integrated with the cloud. And one point to add, and the key takeaway here, is that DevOps is also growing with the cloud. So we can see that it'll become even more in demand because we have seen companies that are really transitioning to the cloud and very involved with it. So as we've seen with trends over the past few years, companies are shifting now more so than ever to the cloud, and they will continue to do so, and that's with good reason. So this is a snapshot from AWS, which shows in this table just how much money can be saved by companies in moving to the cloud. So we can see that if you do the cloud migration, the labor cost itself is going to increase by 3 times. And this means that there's just more demand for DevOps people because these are the people that are going to be doing the cloud migration itself. And so by moving on-premise to the cloud, we can see that you can save 61% a year by moving your infrastructure to AWS. So we can see why companies are very quick to move towards this. And having said all of this, one other key thing to note is that in moving to with companies being more involved in cloud migration, there are a lot of jobs that are actually becoming more at risk with cloud migration. And these involve system administrators, database administrators, production support, build engineer, QA automation, and program analyst. And this is for a few different reasons. So for instance, if you look at system administrators, all servers in the cloud, in the cloud, by having all servers in the cloud, you need less system administrators, and you also have automated deployment itself with database administrators. Cloud databases are actually managed by AWS, and autonomous database won't need any more DBA. And then with production support, SaaS applications don't need support, and then so on and so forth. So we can see that there are a lot of jobs that are being impacted by companies just shifting onto cloud migration. And meanwhile, these roles are being shifted to more demand in DevOps itself because of the diverse skill set that they possess, because they have various different skill sets that are deeply involved with cloud migration. So for people that are wanting to get into DevOps, having repetitively mentioned that there are a lot of different skill sets, these are what the core skills are in which you can be expected to learn. So one thing to note is that you don't really need to know all of these in depth, but instead you need to learn how to connect all of these tools together, and this is a very critical point in DevOps. So let's quickly just go over all the tools. So the first one we have is Git. Git is paramount. It's a code hosting platform that allows people to collaborate with a team on projects and is a version control system. So version control just meaning that you can keep track of your work and the changes you've made. So essentially it records changes so that if need be, you can go back to previous versions. Then next up, we have Linux. So everything in the cloud is Linux. It's one of the most used open source operating system, and it runs all the servers and is what we'll be working with. Next up is Ansible. So Ansible helps with automation. It automates tasks with operation infrastructure. So once you have a large number of servers, configuring them by hand can be very error prone. And Ansible just simplifies this by helping you automate configuration. And then next up, we have Terraform and AWS. So AWS is just the main cloud provider. And then Terraform is designed to provision the server and infrastructure. So it's used to deploy automation in public cloud, such as AWS. And it's essentially the go-to tool for infrastructure as code. Essentially, it allows you to codify your infrastructure by describing a specific end state that you want. And then Terraform just creates a plan and reaches that state and provisions the software. And then we have Docker and Kubernetes. So this is involved in deploying cloud-native applications. So essentially, it involves creating applications into units that are called Docker containers, and then being able to orchestrate those containers by using Kubernetes. So containers are just isolated units of software that can run in different types of environments. And then next up is Python. So Python is just the most popular language for DevOps, as I'm sure many of you are comfortable with, and it's very easy to learn. And having a base skill set of Python can go a very long way. And then we have Jenkins. Jenkins is used for building CI/CD pipelines. So that's what we mentioned previously in the DevOps projects. So just used to build and deploy code faster with less errors. And then we have Grafana and ELK. So this is used for monitoring, ensuring that operations are running smoothly. So Grafana is used for running data analytics, monitoring apps, and ELK collects and processes data from various data sources and then stores that data in one centralized data store that can also just scale as the data grows. So having said all of that, knowing these tools one at a time isn't really enough. The key is ensuring that you know how to use all of these tools together. And so you don't have to be a master of every single skill. It's just more so, I guess, being a jack of all trade with these skills. So rather than just learning these tools, you also want to learn how to apply them. And one key area where you can learn and leverage these skills to apply them in the workforce is by doing a lot of commercial grade projects. And that really just helps you hone in on knowing which tools to use in various different circumstances. So this is just done by engaging in active learning and putting what you're learning essentially into effect. Okay, so next up, having said all of these, having introduced you guys to all of these different tools, we'll move into our demo. So we'll move into the prepared demo that leverages these tools, and it just essentially shows how you can use them. So I'll pass them over onto you, Kunal. So Kunal is a DevOps engineer, and he'll be leading us through the demo for today.
Yeah,
so
thank you.
Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah, so can I share the screen?
You should be able to, just one moment.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, got it. Yeah, thank you. So hello everyone. So in this demo, I will walk you through the deployment of Prometheus and Grafana application using AWS in AWS Cloud. Okay, so let us see the architecture of the deployment. So this is the architecture of the demo, what we're going to deploy. So from on our local system, we are installed AWS. So AWS is nothing but it is an Ansible web executable. It is a software where we can run the Ansible playbooks, and which can be installed using various methods, like you can install using Docker, or you can install using Kubernetes or OpenShift. So that is installed on our local system, and we are going to connect to the AWS cloud. That is AWS, that is nothing but Amazon Web Service, and it will going to create a EC2 instance for us. And on the EC2 instance, we are going to deploy the two applications, which is Prometheus and Grafana. So Prometheus is nothing but it is a monitoring tool and alerting system which collects the metrics from the servers, from various servers, and it stores and it is used to visualize the metrics. Whereas Grafana is a visualization method tool which is used to collect the metrics from the Prometheus, and it is used to visualize the metrics in very rich fashion using Grafana. Okay, so this is the architecture of today's demo. So we have on our local system, we have AWS installed, which is going to connect to the AWS, where it will deploy or it will launch a EC2 instance, and on the EC2 instance, it is going to deploy the two applications, which is the Prometheus as well as Grafana. So let us see the playbook. Okay, so if you see the playbook here of the application which we're going to deploy, so this is first step. It will create first EC2 instance in AWS cloud. Okay, so this is the playbook which I have written, and it will deploy in the AWS cloud, and it will go to the roles. In the roles, we have two main application, which is Prometheus and Grafana. So once the EC2 instance is deployed, it will run the playbook for Prometheus and Grafana. So this is what we are going to do in this demo. And if you see the AWS dashboard, so this is the AWS dashboard, which is Ansible web executable. So this is the dashboard where we have configured inventories, then host, then project, then credentials, then templates. Okay. So if I walk you through the project section, and if you see this part. So in this project section, we have to create the project for whatever the application we want to deploy. Suppose, for example, in this case, I have written Prometheus Grafana, and the main thing is here source control credentials. So I'm going to fetch the playbook from the Git repository. So I will select that Git and the URL for that. The URL for the Git repository. So I'm stored in my GitHub repository. So I will I will copy that URL and I will paste it here. Then in the template, I have to create the templates. Like for example, for Grafana, if you see, the template is in this form. So you can name the template, like for example, Prometheus Grafana template, and the job time should be of run. And the inventory, like inventory where it consists of the host on which you're going to deploy the uh, application, then the project. So in the previous step, we have created the project like Prometheus Grafana, and the playbook name we have to select. So in our Git, like for example, in our GitHub repository, I created the application, and for that I have the main.yaml, which contains this playbook here. This is the main.ml. So this is the playbook which we are going to run. Okay, so that is that part. And the credentials. So credentials, it can be of EC2 credentials and AWS credentials. So I've saved it. Then once it's done, like configuring of all those inventories, hosts, projects, credentials, as well as templates, then you are ready to deploy the application. So I'll deploy this. So this is the template, the Prometheus Grafana temp. So I will click on launch template. So it will take a couple of minutes to launch this playbook. So and the Prometheus and Grafana, so Prometheus and Grafana, it launched at the port like 9090. So it works on port 9090, whereas the Grafana works on the port 3000. So we have to access those application on those ports 9090, as well as for Grafana it is 3000 the port. So it will take a couple of minutes. So this AWS is like it is a graphical user interface where you can run the Ansible playbooks instead of running the playbook in the terminal using normal terminal method. So we can make use of the web UI. So it will be organized properly. So we can assign the multiple users, multiple organizations where we can organize the playbooks in better way. So this is the open source project which is developed by the Red Hat. So if you want to, so there is also a licensed version for this, which is called as Ansible Tower. So this is the open source project. So it is, they can, without the license, it works. So it will take a couple of minutes. So if you want to see, as you can see in my AWS account, it started creating the EC2 instance. So it takes time. So it is initializing. So once it gets initialized, it will go to the work, that is role. Go to this roles, the Prometheus Grafana. It will install the first Prometheus. Then next it will install Grafana. Once it is done, so you can see in the details section of this. So you can see this. So it is started creating the EC2 instance. So you can see it started creating the application, the Prometheus application. So these two applications are very important, like for monitoring purpose. So Prometheus, it will collect the metrics from from several servers, and it will store in a database. And from the database, we have to connect. We have to, if you want to see in a better visualization, we have to connect it to the Grafana, which will give better visualization of the metrics collected by the Prometheus. So that is the main purpose of using this monitoring tools. So I think the playbook is this has finished installing Prometheus as well as the Grafana. So you can see. So if you see this green and white icon here, Prometheus and Grafana template on the left side, so that means it is successfully has run the playbook. So if you want to access the applications, you can just copy this DNS name. Copy this DNS name, and in the browser you can paste this DNS name. And as I told you, the Prometheus works on port 9090. So you can see this is the Prometheus. If you want to see what are the HTTP requests made by the host, so you can select the metrics. So there are various metrics exposed by the Prometheus itself. So if you want to see the HTTPS requests, you can select that. So for example, you can see this, and if I click on request, and if you want to see the graphical part of it, so you click on this. So this is what the Prometheus shows in GraphPay. And in the console, you can see these are the requests made by the client. So this is about the Prometheus, and if you want to see the Grafana, it works on the port 3030. Okay, so you can see this application has been launched on EC2 instance. So the password is the username is admin, as well as the password is admin. So this is what the dashboard of Grafana looks like. So this Grafana, we have to connect to the Prometheus. If you want to fetch the metrics selected by the Prometheus, then we have to connect it to the Prometheus server, so that we can visualize this in a better way. So this is all about today's demo, how to deploy the Prometheus and Grafana using AWS on AWS Cloud. Thank you. If any questions, you can drop in the chat box. I will try to answer those questions.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Kunal, for the demonstration. So I'll move on to sharing my screen. Okay, perfect. So as Kunal showed, there is DevOps is really about knowing which tools to use for various different circumstances, and that was a great demonstration of something that you guys may be getting involved in. So you may also be wondering how to get into the role of becoming a DevOps engineer yourself. So this is what we'll be moving on to next. So some key points to know in advance is that there are an abundance of DevOps jobs, but it is difficult to find people that can use all of the required tools. And often they're looking for people with 7 or more years of experience. So you may be wondering, how do you overcome this? Which is what we'll be talking about after the next slide. And another key point is to know is that you may be at a different starting position. So there are a few different starting points you may find yourself lying in. So the first one is you may be someone who has programming skills, but not much experience. So possibly someone with a CS degree, without a CS degree, but a STEM background. Or there are also people who are experienced, but they want to transition into DevOps. So this can be a group like sysadmins or developers who want to learn more operations. And then lastly, we have people who are outside of technology and they're working in business or a different area, and they might be a total beginner to this field. And so with all of that in mind, we've created the FlexDev Career Ignite program, or the Journey to DevOps Journey to DevOps / Cloud Engineering program. And so we've been doing this program for quite a bit, and we have some great testimonials. So we've helped bring a lot of people into DevOps and cloud. And so these are just some previous students from various different boot camps that we've done and who've really enjoyed the program. So these are just some more testimonials. So essentially, with regards to the program of the program design, our program helps people learn all of the skills we previously mentioned and to be able to complete these projects like we've seen in the demo. So our company has an excess supply of DevOps contracts. And so essentially with the program design, you learn the necessary skills to work on these contracts. And if you complete the program, you will have a job. And this program is combined with extensive mentoring to make students independent. So the program design is essentially, there are 3 components to it. There's the learning phase in which you learn all the content, an internship phase where you get full on hands experience with commercial grade projects and contracts. And then the last place is the placement phase where we help you find your job. So resume building and so forth. So we'll break into the details of that in a few slides. But essentially, just to get an idea of the program design, we focus on getting you to work on projects that will help show employers that you not only have learned the skills, but have been able to skillfully apply them in actual projects. So these projects, like I said, involve getting you to work on DevOps contracts, which are really great experiences that you can put on your resume, especially for those people who may be new to the field. So with regards to the design of the program and what you would be expected to learn and cover, we have 2 learning paths, which are active learning paths. Active learning just being in the sense that you apply everything that you're learning. So we start you off with learning, for instance, Python, and then working on a Python project, learning Linux, working on a Linux project, learning IT foundations, AWS, cloud automation, and so forth, along with applying essentially everything you're learning through projects and really getting that hands-on experience. And with all of these different tools, this prepares you for a junior DevOps or cloud ops position. And then with active learning path number 2, this path includes DevOps skills need to have previous knowledge to work with. So you're building up on knowledge. So we get you to work on, learn monitoring, working on a monitoring project, learn Ansible, an Ansible project, Docker and Kubernetes, modern tech stack, and Cloud Zero apps. So again, you're learning all of these different tools and applying what you're learning through projects to get you ready to land that DevOps career. So for new people, what you can do is to first aim at the junior cloud job, which can be a stepping stone into moving into the DevOps position. So we've created these 2 stepping stones because we found that the best way to get to the DevOps position is by first starting off at a junior cloud job. And going straight into DevOps does require a very deep level of understanding. Some people, if they are very intensive about it, they do go straight to DevOps. And with these skills, you can also go after a lot of other different jobs. So these skills can go into a wide range of jobs with various different criteria, because the projects that we give you aren't just going to be best for a DevOps engineer, but also good and appealing for a wide range of careers. So for instance, careers involved in software development, like being a developer, architecture, data engineer, QA engineer, and then in system engineering, such as data ops, system automation, cloud engineer, and DevOps engineer. So we can see that the skills you're learning apply to a very wide range of jobs. And so one common question is whether or not someone needs a CS degree to really get into the field. And one thing that we found is that having the degree, like a CS degree, is not always what matters. It's often rather how you can signal to employers that you can bring value to their team that matters. So the skill sets that you continuously build up. And so if you look at this job posting, you can see that you might have a CS degree, you might not. That's not what we're looking for. So this is just one example we found in which people would rather see that you can bring value as opposed to simply just the degree that you have. And so with regards to the placement strategy results that we've obtained after completing the program, just to gain an idea, we found that people are placed in a job within 3 months at 79%, 91% have placement within 6 months, and all our students have placements within 1 year. And some of these stats have actually risen. And this is widely due to our phase-wise approach, which, like I mentioned very shortly previously, we break our program into 3 different phases. So we have the active learning phase, the internship phase, as well as the placement phase. So with the active learning phase, we're really just giving you just enough knowledge to start building things. In the active learning phase, what you can expect is daily Q&A and many videos to help you learn. So you learn from the videos, work on assignments that we give you, and along the way, if you need help and get stuck, we're there to help you and guide you with our mentors. And then in this program, also what you'll find is that you're really applying everything that you're learning, which really helps you learn and become a true developer. And then we have the internship phase next. So at the start, this is an unpaid internship where we can see you work on various projects, which can help you with your resume. And then we also can give you a reference since we do see what you're capable of. And sometimes when Cloud Ready gets full contract work, which is fairly often, we put you on those contracts as a junior position. In this case, it is a paid internship. And then lastly, we have the placement phase. So this is the phase where we focus on placing you at a job. With Shanjan being very deeply involved in the industry, he knows what makes candidates stand out as applicants to employers. He's hired a lot of people and knows the skill sets that do signal to employers what will get you into the interview and then land the job. So we help you with everything from resume building, preparing for interviews, and securing you in your job. So the way that we do this is through two different methods. We have Program A, and so with Program A, there is a technical screening and interview. This program is essentially meant for people who do have a bit of a background in terms of like coding. So we do screen you with a very short technical interview, and with this Program A, it's approximately 3 months part-time. It's 30 hours of self-paced videos, learning path that covers the most in-demand technologies, which we mentioned previously. There are daily Scrum and Q&A sessions, so these are about an hour or so long, and you can ask whatever questions you need when learning the content and working on projects. And the internship phase starts as soon as you're ready. And then we also have resume coaching, mock interviews, and then lastly, placement upon finishing the program. And then we have Program B, and so this is open to anyone. There's no technical interview. This one is slightly longer just because we do cover, for instance, if you don't have any experience in Python, to get you up to speed, you learn Python. It's about 6 months part-time, 30 plus hours of self-paced videos, and essentially the same idea as the Program A. It just is a bit longer. And so post-training, what you can expect is resume building, targeted job search, and interview preparation, retraining, as well as project work. Okay, and then with regards to the program components, what you can expect are self-paced videos, Slack channel support, live classroom series, one-on-one mentoring, internship projects, and placement services. And then with regards to the cost of the program, we have the Advanced DevOps program, which is the Program A with the technical interview. So it's $1,000 per month. It is 3 months of training. So you complete the program and then you get the DevOps contractor placements. And then with the Beginner DevOps program, or Program B, this is also same price, $1,000 per month. It's for 6 months of training, and then you complete the program, and then there are DevOps contracts and placements. And as always, there is a first week money back guarantee. And I believe that's the end of the webinar. If anybody has any questions, we can stick around for a couple of minutes. If you have any questions about the content that is being covered, a bit more, if you'd like more detail into the program, you can just send me a question in the Q&A or in the chat. I can also put down my email address in here just so it's easily, you can copy and paste it fairly easily. My email is anna.p@bcloudready.com. So feel free, I'm just going to put that into the chat. So if anybody has any questions, please feel free to send me an email if you'd like to ask questions one-on-one or get more information to the program. And then we also do have the website on that you can register on the screen as well. So I don't see any questions in the chat. So I believe that this will end the webinar session for today. But again, everyone, please feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. I'd be very happy to answer them. And thank you everyone for coming out today.